There are many Excel functions to perform various calculations and data manipulation, but in this section we will be looking at some of the most popular ones. For that, let me first go to the sales worksheet where you can see that there is data similar to what we looked at earlier, but here we have few more rows of data. The first one that we are going to look at is sum. This function, as the name suggests, is to calculate the sum or total of given values. So suppose I want to find the total quantity here. For that, I'll go to cell H36, first type an equal to sign, and then start typing sum. We can see that the function appears here. Now I'll hit tab, and as its argument, it asks for the numbers that can be entered manually, or you can provide individual cell references or provide a range of cells. In this case, I will be providing a range of cells starting from H3 to here, that is H34. Then I will hit enter. So that's how you can make use of the sum function. Next, let us look at the count function. This function counts the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. So let us first try the count function for column E. As you can see, it has alphanumeric entries. It has both alphabets and number. Let us see if it would work for this. So I will type in count and then select this cell range from E3 to E34. When I press enter, you can see that it has returned the value as 0. This is because it could not find any cell with only numeric entries. Now let us try this function for column H. So here I will again type in equal to count and this time give the range as H3 to H34. As I hit enter, we can see the result as 32. That means there are 32 numerical entries in the column H from rows 3 to 34. So this is how the count function works. The next function that we are going to look at is average. This function calculates the average of the values in a range of cells. Suppose we want to find the average quantity sold per order. So for that, when I type in equal to and then AV, you can see the functions starting with AV are getting listed. The function that we want to use here is average. So I will click on this. Now again, I will give the range of cells for which I need to calculate the average as its argument. Now I will press enter. So you can see the average quantity sold per order is approximately 135. Next, we have the max function. This function returns the maximum value in a range of cells. If I want to find out the maximum quantity sold, I will use the max function starting with an equal sign. And then give the range from which I want to find the highest value, that is H3 to H34, and then enter. The output shows that 239 is the highest quantity sold for an order number in the list provided. Similarly, the min function returns the minimum value in a range of cells. Next is if. This function allows you to create conditional formulas. For example, if I want to find out the order numbers where the quantity sold is over 150 and add a remark as good, I can use the if function for that. Now, if you want to edit an entry in a cell, you can either double click on that cell or press F2. So now, as I said, for the line items that have sold over 150 pizzas, I want to add good under the remarks column. So as always, to use the function, start with an equal sign, type in if and hit tab. Here you can see what the syntax of the if function looks like. So the first argument here is the logical test. So our logical test here is if the quantity which is in H3 for this row, is greater than 150, comma, and then we move on to the second argument. For that, enter the value that you want to display if the result of the logical test is true. That is, if the value being compared is greater than 150. Now the final argument is the value to be displayed if the result of the logical test is false. In this case, I do not want to show anything, so I will leave it as it is and close the bracket and hit enter. Now you can see here, the quantity in the first row is 122, which is less than 150, and since we did not define any value that should be displayed, it is showing 0 here. Now I will copy this to the cells below by dragging this. We can see that in some of the cells it shows the name error. The reason for this is that the text message that we want to display must be enclosed in double quotes. I missed that here, so let me just add that. Now I will do a Ctrl-Shift down arrow to highlight the cells below and then do a Ctrl-D to copy this change to all the cells below. Now we can see that for the line items where the order quantity is greater than 150, the remark column shows good. So this is the way you can use the if function to test a particular condition. Next, we are going to look at one of the most used or the most important functions, which is the VLOOKUP function. The VLOOKUP function is very helpful. What does it do? It searches for a value in a table and returns the corresponding value from another column in the table. It sounds complicated. Let me show how it works. Suppose I want to find the price per quantity for each type of pizza. Now I have this data in this worksheet, which is the product details. So if I go over here, you can see that it has the price for each type of pizza. Now, if we were to do this manually, we will have to search for each pizza type. For example, BBQ chicken, note its value. So here it is 16 and then enter that value in the other worksheet. So I need to go back to the sales worksheet, look for BBQ chicken here and then add that value here. This process is definitely very time consuming and also error prone. As opposed to what we see here, if this data contained thousands of rows, you can imagine the time and effort that would be needed to perform this activity. So in cases like these, VLOOKUP comes very handy. So let's see how it works. So I will go to this cell, type equal to, and then type VLOOKUP. It has already popped up here. Press tab. As you can see here, the first argument is the lookup value, which is the pizza type. So I will select the cells G3 to G34, comma. Now the next argument is the table array. Our table is in the product details worksheet. So we will go over here and select the table and then a comma. Now the next argument is column index number. This is the number of the column Excel must count over, starting from the first column selected to find the column that contains the value that we want to retrieve. In this case, the index should be 2, 1, 2. So I will put 2 and then a comma again. Finally, the last argument, that is the range lookup, we will put 1, which is the approximate match. Close the bracket and hit enter. You can see here that it has automatically populated the cells below. So now we have the price based on the type of pizza mentioned in column G. We can see that Pizza is 8, Extravaganza is 8, BBQ chicken is 16, and if we go to the product details, we can verify the same data here to conclude that the information has been correctly updated. So just with the use of one Excel function, we can look for values from other worksheet, or you could even look up values from other workbooks. Similarly, there is another function called HLOOKUP. VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup and HLOOKUP stands for horizontal lookup. So this function searches for a value in a table and returns the corresponding value from another row in the table, whereas VLOOKUP returns corresponding value from another column in a table. So in this video, we looked at the sum function, count, average, maximum or minimum, the if function and the VLOOKUP function. Now, whenever you perform calculations using Excel functions, you would always see that these functions are referring to other cells and any change to those cells would change the value over here. For example, if we go and update the price of say pizza to 10, you would see that this change also gets reflected here. Let me change it back to 8. Now consider a situation where you do not want this data to be dynamic. That is, if any change happens at the source, it should not change the data here. For that, you can just copy this and then do a paste special where you have the paste value option. This means that it will only copy the value and not the formula or function. So if I go to the cell, you can see here in the formula bar that it no longer shows a formula or a function which refers another cell, but it is just a plain value. These are just a few of the many common Excel functions. You can find a list of all the Excel functions in the Excel help document.